Ryan Reynolds throws his kids under a creepy bus yet again, while also declaring himself Satan, and Blake Lively is trying her damnedest to keep her text messages and emails from your eyes. Lively is doing her damnedest to ensure that her messages, her text messages, her emails, all of it, along with 15 other third parties, all that correspondence is delayed a little bit longer. They take their time with it. They see how it goes, even though legally it should all be released by now.
Could Blake Lively be hiding something that changes everything? While her legal team fights tooth and nail to keep critical evidence sealed, her husband Ryan Reynolds continues, making disturbing comments about their children that raise serious questions about what really happens behind closed doors. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is moving fast and you won't want to miss what comes next. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think is really going on here. Right now, Blake Lively is engaged in a legal battle that goes far beyond a simple celebrity dispute. Text messages, emails, communications with 15 third parties, all of it locked away from public view. Her attorneys are stalling, buying time, pushing deadlines. The question is, why? What could these documents possibly contain that requires this level of secrecy? Let's start with the latest development. Blake Lively's legal team just filed another motion requesting more time to review documents before they're unsealed. They're claiming they need additional days to go through 275 exhibits, including over 100 sealed documents that involve not just Lively herself, but 15 separate third parties. Here's where it gets interesting. The opposing counsel, led by attorney Alexander Shapiro representing the Wayfair parties, isn't buying it for a second. They filed a response that essentially shreds every excuse Lively's team provided. The documents in question were delivered just 2 hours past midnight. 2 hours. Lively's attorneys are claiming those 2 hours at 1 and 2 in the morning somehow prevented them from conducting a proper review. Think about that for a moment. Blake Lively is represented by multiple global law firms. These are some of the most expensive, well-staffed legal teams money can buy. She has lawyers on both coasts, armies of associates who could review these documents within hours. Yet somehow, they need more time? Shapiro's response cuts straight to the core of the issue. He cites Supreme Court and Second Circuit precedent establishing a presumption of immediate public access to judicial documents. This presumption becomes even stronger when materials are filed in connection with summary judgment motions. Every day these documents remain sealed potentially violates First Amendment principles. The public has a right to monitor the courts, and secret documents undermine that fundamental principle.
Is new, right? I didn't have that, says Reynolds. There's not a lot of yelling, or there's not a lot of yelling. It's not a lot of yelling, some, or punishments or anything like that. But I'll tell you something. I really don't believe that you have to be screwed up, effed up to make good stuff. Well, I'd hope not. No, that's definitely not the case. He then goes in and wants his kids to feel safe and wants them in that place of safety. You make great decisions that way. That way, you know, it isn't just fight or flight all the time.
But here's what makes this truly compelling. According to Shapiro's filing, these aren't trade secrets or technical documents requiring expert analysis. They're primarily emails and text messages, communications that should be straightforward to review. In fact, many of these documents were already used as deposition exhibits and even formed the basis for Lively's own court filings. She's already familiar with this material. So, why the delay? The Wayfair legal team went further. They pointed out that despite Lively's claims about needing coordination with 15 third parties, not a single one of those third parties has actually requested an extension themselves. Most of them have fewer than 25 documents to review. If the third parties are concerned, why is Lively? Here's another revealing detail. Since the Wayfair parties filed their summary judgment motion a week ago, Lively's counsel has made zero effort to meet and confer about which specific documents should or shouldn't be sealed. Zero. They're not engaging in the normal legal process of negotiation and compromise. They're simply asking for blanket delays. Shapiro described Lively's tactics as dilatory. That's legal terminology for stalling, and judges absolutely despise dilatory tactics. Courts operate on schedules and deadlines for good reason. When one party continuously seeks extensions without legitimate justification, it undermines the entire judicial process. The message from Wayfair's team is crystal clear. Don't let her keep stalling. What could be in these communications? Given that they involve 15 third parties, we're potentially talking about agents, publicists, other celebrities, crew members, and staff. This isn't just about protecting Blake Lively's privacy. This appears to be about shielding a much wider network of individuals from public scrutiny. The Wayfair team made their own communications public. They unsealed comparable materials from their side. If the documents were truly innocuous, why wouldn't Lively do the same? What makes her text messages and emails so sensitive that they require this extraordinary level of protection? Consider the broader context. This is connected to a legal matter involving serious allegations. The public interest here isn't trivial. These documents could reveal how celebrity publicists coordinate responses, how narratives are crafted, how pressure is applied behind the scenes. That's information the public deserves to see, especially when it relates to legal proceedings that are already part of the public record. Let's rewind for a moment and understand how we got here. This situation emerged from workplace conduct allegations that spiraled into a multi-million-dollar legal confrontation. What started as one dispute has expanded into a complex web involving public relations strategies, alleged coordination among multiple parties, and questions about how powerful celebrities navigate legal challenges. The sealing issue began when the Wayfair parties filed their motion with heavily redacted sections. However, they explicitly stated they didn't believe most of this material should be sealed. They voluntarily agreed to a one-week seal to allow both parties time to meet and discuss specific redactions. That's standard legal courtesy. Give everyone a chance to identify genuinely sensitive information that deserves protection. Blake Lively's team responded by requesting significantly more time. They filed their response claiming they received 275 exhibits, many delivered after the deadline, making it impossible to conduct adequate review. They emphasized that over 100 sealed exhibits involved documents produced by or concerning Lively under confidentiality agreements, plus communications with those 15 third parties. The Wayfair team countered immediately. They pointed out they had already offered to double the standard review time by agreeing to the one-week extension. Going beyond that would violate established circuit court law regarding public access to judicial documents. What makes this particularly noteworthy is the contrast in approach. The Wayfair parties have been aggressive about transparency. They want these documents public. They're confident that what's contained in these communications supports their position. Blake Lively's team, conversely, is fighting hard to keep everything under wraps as long as possible. From a legal standpoint, Blake Lively's strategy here carries significant risks. Judges notice patterns. When a party repeatedly seeks extensions, makes procedural arguments that lack substance, and fails to engage in good faith negotiations, it creates an impression, and not a favorable one. The legal principle at stake is straightforward. Courts are public institutions. Judicial proceedings are, with limited exceptions, supposed to be transparent. The First Amendment doesn't just protect speech, it protects the public's right to access information about how their courts operate. When documents are filed as part of a legal case, there's a strong presumption they should be publicly available. There are legitimate exceptions, of course. Trade secrets, sensitive medical information, details that could compromise ongoing investigations. These can justify sealing. But personal embarrassment or reputational concerns generally don't meet that standard. If Blake Lively simply doesn't want people reading her text messages because they're embarrassing or contradictory, that's not a legally sufficient reason to keep them sealed. The strategic implications cut deeper. By fighting so hard to keep these documents hidden, Lively may actually be drawing more attention to them. The Streisand effect is real. If these were truly mundane communications that didn't matter, the smarter move might have been letting them be released without fanfare. The aggressive opposition suggests there's something significant buried in those messages. Consider what Wayfair's attorneys are signaling. They've reviewed these documents. They're confident enough to demand immediate release. They've unsealed their own comparable materials. That suggests they believe the content supports their narrative, not Lively's. If the communications showed Blake Lively in a positive light, her team would likely be eager to make them public. There's also the question of the 15 third parties. In simple terms, this means Blake Lively wasn't just communicating with the direct parties to this dispute. She was coordinating with a network of other individuals. Who are they? Publicists crafting talking points? Other celebrities offering support or advice? Entertainment industry executives weighing in on strategy? The The public has a legitimate interest in understanding how these networks operate, especially when they intersect with legal proceedings. The dilatory tactics accusation is particularly damaging. When Shapiro used that specific language, he was sending a message directly to the judge. Courts have broad discretion in managing their dockets, but they take a dim view of parties who deliberately slow down proceedings without justification. Repeated extensions can result in sanctions, adverse inferences, or simply a judge who becomes skeptical of everything that party claims going forward. This case represents something larger than just one celebrity's legal troubles. It reveals how power and wealth can be leveraged to control narratives, even within the judicial system. The average person involved in a lawsuit doesn't have teams of lawyers from global firms. They can't afford to file motion after motion seeking delays. They don't have the resources to coordinate with 15 different parties to manage a unified legal strategy. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds present themselves publicly as relatable, down-to-earth parents navigating the challenges of raising children in the spotlight. But the contrast between that public image and what's emerging through this legal battle is striking. Behind the carefully curated social media presence and glossy magazine interviews, there appears to be a sophisticated operation designed to control information and manage public perception at all costs. Ryan Reynolds' recent comments about parenting add another layer to this story. He jokes about not wanting to mess up his children, calls them spawns of Satan, references himself as Satan, makes uncomfortable comments about vasectomies based on his children's gender. Individually, these might seem like awkward attempts at humor, but taken together, especially in the context of his wife fighting desperately to keep private communications secret, they paint a picture of a family operating under enormous pressure while trying to maintain a specific public image. The parallel is hard to ignore. Reynolds makes public comments that generate backlash, then has to clarify or walk them back. His wife fights in court to keep private communications from becoming public, then has to file additional motions when her initial excuses don't hold up. Both suggest a pattern of saying or doing things that don't stand up well under scrutiny, followed by damage control. If these documents are eventually unsealed, and legally they probably should be, what will they reveal? Will they show coordination with publicists to shape media narratives? Evidence of pressure applied to others involved in the situation? Communications that contradict public statements Blake Lively has made? The harder her team fights to keep them sealed, the more significant the eventual revelation is likely to be. This case could establish important precedent about celebrity privilege in the legal system. Can famous individuals use their resources to keep judicial documents sealed simply because they find them embarrassing or damaging to their reputation? Or will courts enforce the principle that justice must be transparent, regardless of who's involved? The answer matters far beyond Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. It affects how we understand celebrity culture, legal transparency, and the intersection between public relations and judicial proceedings. It raises questions about accountability for powerful individuals and whether our legal system truly operates under the same rules for everyone. What do you think is really in those sealed documents? Could this legal battle expose a broader pattern of how Hollywood manages controversies behind the scenes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story has you hooked, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because as these legal filings continue, we'll be breaking down every new development. Hit that like button if you want to see more deep analysis of celebrity legal battles. And share this video with anyone who needs to understand what's really happening beyond the headlines. This is far from over. The judge will ultimately decide whether Blake Lively gets more time or whether these documents finally see the light of day. When that decision comes, you'll want to be ready. We'll be here to break it all down. Until then, stay critical, stay informed, and remember, the truth always has a way of coming out eventually.